Let me tell you something most people won't say out loud. When a man starts pulling away, the first instinct most women have is panic. You start checking your phone every 5 minutes. You replay every conversation in your head. You wonder what you did wrong, what you said wrong, what you should fix. And I'm here to tell you that reaction is exactly what not to do. When a man starts pulling away, the first story your mind tells you is that he's losing interest. That's the easy explanation. But the truth is, most of the time, a man doesn't pull away because he feels nothing. He pulls away because he feels too much and doesn't know what to do with it. Men are wired to act when they are sure. When they're unsure, they retreat. And that retreat isn't always rejection. Sometimes it's confusion wrapped in fear. See, when emotions start growing, expectations start whispering in a man's ear. He begins to feel the weight of what comes next. Commitment isn't just love to a man, it's responsibility, consistency, showing up even on days he doesn't feel like it. And when he's not ready for that level of responsibility, he backs up to breathe. Not to disappear, but to regain control of his emotions. What most women don't understand is that men don't talk their way through feelings. Women process emotions by expressing them. Men process emotions by distancing themselves from the source until they can understand what they're feeling. So when he pulls away, it's often because the connection is getting real enough to demand a decision. And decisions scare a man who isn't fully settled in himself yet. Now here's where it gets dangerous. When you assume his distance means you're not enough, you start overcompensating. You give more, explain more, tolerate more. But all that does is remove the pressure from him to figure out what he wants. You end up doing emotional labor for a man who hasn't decided if he's ready to carry his own. A man in conflict doesn't need you to chase him. He needs space to confront himself. And space is uncomfortable. Space forces him to ask questions he's been avoiding. Questions like, why do I feel different about her? What happens if I lose her? Am I ready to step up, or do I walk away? Those questions don't come when you're constantly reassuring him. They come when your presence is no longer guaranteed. Let me tell you something real. If a man pulls away and you respond with calm confidence instead of panic, it shocks him. He expects emotion. He expects reaction. He expects resistance. But when you stay steady, you quietly communicate strength. And strength makes a man reflect. He starts realizing this isn't just another woman he can drift away from without consequences. Pulling away is often the space between desire and decision. He's standing in the middle, unsure which way to go. And your role in that moment is not to push him in your direction. Your role is to stand firmly in who you are and let him decide whether he's capable of meeting you there. Because here's the truth nobody likes to admit. A man who pulls away and comes back with clarity was never lost. He was just sorting himself out. And a man who pulls away and never returns didn't leave because you weren't enough. He left because he wasn't ready. And that difference matters. When a man starts pulling away, it usually lines up with the moment emotions stop being casual and start asking for decisions. Up until that point, everything feels easy. There's laughter, attraction, comfort. But the second emotions deepen, something shifts inside a man. He realizes this isn't just about enjoying someone anymore. It's about where this thing is going. And when a man feels like a decision is coming that he's not prepared to make, he doesn't argue, he doesn't explain, he withdraws. Men are raised to believe they must be ready before they commit. Ready financially, ready mentally, ready emotionally. So when love shows up before readiness, it creates tension. He feels something strong, but he doesn't feel prepared to handle what that feeling demands. Instead of admitting that out loud, he creates distance. That distance isn't cruelty. It's avoidance of a choice he's afraid to face. This is why pulling away often happens right after moments of closeness, right after vulnerability, right after deep conversations, right after you start feeling secure. Emotional closeness triggers the awareness that the situation is no longer temporary. And when a man senses permanence approaching, he either steps forward or steps back. What most women misinterpret is thinking his distance means he wants less of you. In many cases, it means he feels the pressure of becoming more for you. And if he doesn't believe he can meet that standard, he creates space so he doesn't disappoint you or expose his uncertainty. Now understand this clearly. A man who pulls away is not running from love. He's running from the responsibility attached to love. Love to a man isn't just emotion. It's expectation. It's consistency. It's showing up when he's tired, stressed, or unsure. And if he's already overwhelmed in life, love can feel like one more demand he doesn't know how to fulfill. This is where patience without self-abandonment matters. Because when you respond to his withdrawal by demanding reassurance, you add pressure. You make the decision louder. And pressure makes men shut down further. But when you allow space without losing your dignity, you remove the emotional noise. You let him feel what life is like without your steady presence filling the gaps. A man learns through absence more than argument. When he notices your calm, your stability, your refusal to beg for clarity, something shifts. He starts recognizing that your presence was adding value, not pressure. And now that it's missing, he has to decide whether he's willing to grow into the man who can sustain it. Here's the part most people avoid saying. Some men pull away because they sense they will have to change. They will have to grow. And growth is uncomfortable. Growth requires effort. Growth requires letting go of old habits and emotional immaturity. So instead of stepping into that discomfort, they pause the connection. But a man who truly cares will not stay paused forever. He will either rise to the moment or release you. And both outcomes are clarity. Because love that requires you to shrink, chase, or convince someone to choose you is not love, it's negotiation. When a man pulls away, it's often the sound of him wrestling with who he is versus who he needs to become. When a man starts pulling away, the most natural reaction is to move closer. You text more, you call more, you explain more, you try to fix what feels broken. But that instinct, as understandable as it is, works against you. Because when a man pulls back and you chase, the distance doesn't close, it grows. Men respond to energy differently. What feels like care to you can feel like pressure to him. A man who is unsure needs space, not pursuit. When you chase clarity, you remove his opportunity to miss you. And missing someone is what forces emotional awareness. If you're always there, always available, always trying to smooth things over, he never feels the full weight of your absence. Without that weight, there's no urgency for him to reflect or decide. Self-control is powerful. Choosing not to react emotionally is not weakness, it's strength. When you pull your energy back instead of chasing, you shift the dynamic. Suddenly, he's the one noticing the change. He's the one wondering why you're quieter, why you're not pushing, why you're not asking questions. That curiosity pulls his attention back toward you. Men are wired to move toward what they feel they might lose, not what's guaranteed, not what's chasing them. What feels uncertain but valuable. When you stop over-explaining and start standing still, you communicate confidence without saying a word. And confidence is magnetic. This doesn't mean you play games or pretend not to care. It means you respect yourself enough not to beg for presence. There's a difference between emotional maturity and emotional chasing. Emotional maturity allows space while maintaining boundaries. Emotional chasing sacrifices dignity for reassurance. A man pulling away is often testing his own freedom. He wants to know if he can step back without losing you completely. When you chase, you answer that question for him. You show him that no matter how distant he becomes, you'll close the gap. But when you don't chase, when you stay grounded, you force him to confront the reality that distance has consequences. And that moment, that pause, is where clarity happens. He starts to feel the imbalance. He realizes the connection isn't being carried by you anymore. He has to decide whether to step forward and meet you or let the space widen into separation. Here's the truth. You cannot pull a man toward commitment by effort alone. Effort doesn't inspire a man to choose. It allows him to delay choosing. When you stop doing the work for him, you place the responsibility back where it belongs. Pulling your energy back is not manipulation, it's alignment. You're aligning your actions with your worth. You're saying, without words, that connection requires mutual investment. That you are not an option waiting on standby. Men respect what requires intention. When your presence is no longer automatic, it becomes meaningful. He begins to associate closeness with effort, not convenience. And effort changes how a man values a connection. When a man pulls away and you respond with self-respect instead of pursuit, you give him the one thing he needs most in that moment, space to choose. When a man pulls away and you suddenly go quiet, it feels uncomfortable at first. Silence can feel risky, especially when you're used to talking things through. But silence, when it comes from self-respect and not anger, has a way of revealing truth faster than any conversation ever could. Because when you stop filling the space with explanations, reassurance, and emotional effort, you leave a man alone with his own thoughts. Men don't gain clarity in noise. They gain clarity in stillness. When you stop asking what's wrong, stop chasing answers, stop trying to manage his emotions, something powerful happens. The silence creates a mirror. He starts seeing his behavior clearly. He notices the distance because you're no longer trying to close it for him. Most people are afraid of silence because it forces reflection. And a man who is pulling away is already avoiding reflection. Your quiet presence removes his escape routes. He can't blame arguments. He can't blame pressure. All he has left is himself and the choices he's making. This is where silence becomes a language. It says you're secure enough not to beg for attention. It says you trust yourself enough to let things unfold. And that kind of confidence is unsettling in the best way. He expected emotion. He expected reaction. He expected resistance. Instead, he gets calm. Silence also shifts power. Not power over him, but power back to you. You stop handing him control of your emotions. You stop signaling that his distance determines your peace. And when a man realizes he no longer has emotional leverage, he starts paying closer attention. A man begins to notice what your presence added to his life when it's no longer filling the room. He notices the comfort, the support, the warmth, the consistency. Absence sharpens awareness, and awareness leads to decision. Now understand this clearly. Silence doesn't guarantee he'll come back. That's not the purpose. The purpose of silence is clarity. It shows you who he is without your influence. A man who values you will feel the absence and move toward you with intention. A man who doesn't will let the silence stretch until it becomes permanent. And both outcomes save you time. Silence forces a man to choose between effort and ease. Reaching out requires effort. Staying distant is easier. But if he truly cares, effort becomes worth it. And when he does reach out, the tone matters. Clarity matters. Consistency matters. Silence raises the standard without you ever saying a word. What most women don't realize is that silence isn't cold, it's composed. It's the space where self-worth speaks louder than emotion. It's choosing not to perform for attention. It's trusting that the right man will step forward without being pushed. And if he doesn't, the silence teaches you something too. It teaches you that you don't have to chase connection. You don't have to negotiate desire. You don't have to convince someone to value you. Silence becomes a filter separating confusion from intention. When you stop talking, a man has no choice but to listen to himself. When a man starts pulling away, it's rarely random. Most of the time, it's connected to one powerful feeling, loss of control. Men are taught from an early age to value control over their lives, their emotions, and their choices. Control makes a man feel safe. So when a connection begins to matter more than he expected, when his emotions start influencing his decisions, something inside him resists. Pulling away becomes a way to reclaim that control. At first, everything feels easy because he believes he's in charge. He reaches out when he wants. He invests at a level that feels comfortable. But the moment he realizes he's thinking about you more than planned, caring more than intended, or adjusting his behavior because of you, the balance shifts. Now his emotions are involved, and that can feel threatening. A man doesn't like feeling like something has power over him, and love, when it's real, has power. It influences priorities, it softens defenses, it exposes vulnerability. So when he senses that he's losing emotional control, he creates distance not to punish you, but to reassert himself. This is where understanding male psychology changes everything. Pulling away isn't always about leaving. Sometimes it's about stabilizing. He needs to feel grounded again. He needs to remind himself that he's not trapped, not obligated, not overwhelmed. Distance gives him that illusion of control. Now here's the crucial part. When you react emotionally to his distance, when you chase, question, or demand reassurance, you confirm his fear. He feels like the situation is spiraling into something he can't manage. Your reaction makes him feel like control is slipping even further, so he pulls back more. But when you remain calm, centered, and self-directed, the dynamic shifts. You stop reinforcing his fear. You show him that connection doesn't equal chaos. That love doesn't mean losing yourself. And that calm strength does something powerful. It invites him back without force. A man is drawn to stability. He wants to know that choosing you won't cost him his sense of self. When you keep your life moving, maintain your peace, and don't make him the center of your emotional world, he feels safer stepping closer. Loss of control is also tied to expectations. When he senses unspoken expectations forming about commitment, time, consistency, he feels pressure. Not because expectations are wrong, but because he's unsure he can meet them. Pulling away becomes a pause, a moment to breathe before deciding if he's capable of stepping up. This is why the most powerful response to a man pulling away is not confrontation, but composure. Composure tells him you're not trying to cage him. You're inviting him to choose freely. And choice is everything to a man. When he realizes he's not being chased, not being cornered, not being emotionally managed, something shifts internally. He starts asking himself different questions. Not, how do I escape this? But why does her calm bother me? And why do I miss her presence now that she's not pushing? Your stillness removes the power struggle. There's nothing to fight against, no resistance, just space. And in that space, his emotions settle. He begins to recognize that the connection wasn't taking control away from him, it was offering partnership. But here's the truth that must be said. Some men pull away because they never intended to give up control in the first place. They wanted connection without responsibility, attention without accountability. When you don't chase, they fade. And that's not a loss, that's clarity. A man who values you will return when he realizes control isn't about distance. It's about intention. When you stop explaining yourself to a man who's pulling away, something uncomfortable happens for him. He loses access to the version of you that was always trying to be understood. And in that silence, your values start speaking louder than any words ever could. Men don't respond to repeated explanations. They respond to consistency and presence. When both are suddenly gone, it creates impact. Explaining yourself feels productive, but most of the time it's a way to manage anxiety. You're trying to make sure he doesn't misunderstand you, doesn't misjudge you, doesn't drift further away. But a man who is already pulling back isn't confused, he's undecided. And no amount of explaining will push him into clarity. It only delays the moment where he has to confront his own feelings.